Hello and welcome to another AIC video. So this is going to be a little bit of a redemption video. A few years ago I did a video replacing the gaskets on my intake, and it wasn't a very good video because I didn't actually show doing anything. I just talked about it, and that video is probably one of my second most disliked video on my channel. And I understand why. So the problem is people keep watching it and it's made me a ton of money, so I apologize. I'm not proud of that, but it's not untrue. Anyways, the problem is now my valve cover gaskets are leaking, and you can see right there that fuel injector is just soaked in oil, and I just had these replaced. And I wish I had thought to have them replace the valve cover gaskets, because, you know, now I'm spending the money again. When I say money, I mean my time in getting this replaced. And that's probably what caused my fuel injectors to fail in the first place, is just sitting soaked in oil, and my engine just stinks everywhere I go. So I'm going to be going ahead and replacing those and trying to do my best to document the process. First and foremost, what we're going to be doing, I apologize for the kids screaming outside. It's a nice day, so there's a lot of kids out. We're going to be taking off this air intake and some of these hoses and things like that, and just getting things out of the way. So obviously, first things first on that, there's some sensors that are going to come off, the throttle cable and the cruise control cable, this hose here, and then we'll go from there. All right, so for the intake tube, we have this screw for this clamp, this hose here, this sensor here, and this screw there. The clamps are already loose. These just pop out. All right, next to come off is the throttle cable. This just pops off of that little button right there. And then this, and then there's a clip here to push it through. And then this just sits at the end of the throttle cable here. So it just pulls off, and then it just is here. You just push it up and it comes off. So now these are out of the way. Get this clip off there in a second. Next thing we're gonna do is take off the things on this side of it. So I'm gonna get a Phillips head screwdriver, probably with a 10mm socket, and take off some stuff over here. All right, so we just unplugged the throttle sensor, and this is an idle air controller. I put the screws back in. I have a new gasket for this, I believe, so that's one of the reasons why I took it off, because this should be getting a new gasket. And then we're gonna tackle this, and this next. And it looks like that might be a 8mm or 7mm, so I'm gonna go get those and take those off. And this was 10mm. This was 10mm. All right, so we got that connector off. It was actually a 10mm there, and then these were 7mm. These four connectors here. We got this crankcase vent tube, and then the brake booster hose off as well. So those are out of the way, and this will go on my toolbox so I don't lose it. And so that's how we've got so far. So these are 7mm, these are 10, and then the control box, or whatever it is, the connector is 10mm as well. All right, so we've moved to this side of the engine, and there are 6 bolts holding on the intake plenum. There's a clip here and a sensor or something here. Not quite sure what this is. It goes on the back, around there. If you haven't replaced this recently, your ignition coil, I did replace mine when I did this previously. So I'm not going to replace it now, because I think I've only put about 20,000 miles, 30,000 miles on my truck since then. So I'm not going to do it now, because it's just not very old. But if it's been a while since you've done yours, a good time to do it, because these are just 8mm bolts. These are 13mm bolts. Now the hard part of getting this out now is getting it off of this stupid tube. It took me forever. It took me like an hour to figure out that it just yanks off of there, and it's super stiff and super hard to get off. So good luck. I'm going to be at this for a minute trying to yank it off. I don't know of a good way to pop it out, because I don't want to put any torque or pressure on this, because it's just plastic and it'll shatter really easily, right? So it's really just about yanking it hard enough to pop it off of there and to clear the bolts. So that's what's next. All right, you can kind of see why this is kind of a pain to get off. You have to yank it, and then you have to tilt the whole thing kind of up and off to get it off of there. The hole for that is, oh, sorry for the glare, is this thing right here. So it's still kind of connected at this point. All right, so taking a look at it a little bit deeper, the valve covers have to come off next. That's the next step. To get this valve cover off, I have to take off my alternator. The problem with that is this bolt right here, you can see I did not unscrew that. That's been cross-threaded with an UGA and a DUGA. And then this one back here, if I can get it to focus, that one is rounded off nice and tight. So whoever was in here before me fucked it good and tight. So I'm going to hit these with some PB Blaster, let them sit overnight, and I'll come back to this tomorrow when I am not angry. I'll probably finish taking off a few more of them over here on this side. They're 10 millimeter for those bolts for the valve cover. So that's the next stop. You won't get a break-in video when I pick this back up again. It'll probably be tomorrow, but we will be back at it. Hopefully I've figured out what to do with these bolts on the alternator. Ugh, so frustrating. I mean, you can even see that that bolt there, the nut has been cross-threaded. So when I unscrewed it, it didn't unscrew from here. I mean, it unscrewed from here and not the bolts on the top. So having other people work on your car, even when it's a shop sometime, is not okay. But we'll get it. So yeah, I'm going to take off a few more bolts for the valve covers. I'm not going to take them out completely because like I said, I am losing light quickly, and we will be done for this evening. I'll pick back up tomorrow when I'm done with work. All right, so yeah, it's the next day and we're back at it. For you, it's been just a few moments, but for me, it's the next day, and that bolt snapped. I'm so frustrated. I don't even know what to do about that, if I can even use my alternator without those 3 bolts in. We'll see. Because that's a whole bracket on the front of the engine. I don't want to have to replace it if I don't have to. But at this point, we're going to go ahead and keep working on removing the valve covers. Pulled a couple more bolts last night. We'll keep going, and we're working on this side first. All right, so we got the passenger side off. One thing I did was disconnect this vacuum line, and I had to take off the radiator hose. There was just no way to get it out with those two still in place. So radiator hose on my bench, vacuum line is just over here. Get this side out. Now we'll work on the other side. All right, so got the bolts off on this side. Now one thing I had to do to be able to start to get this out is I had to unclip this piece, and then on here, where is it? Off of this piece, I had to unhook the vacuum lines here, so that way I could open this up to be able to even hope to get the valve cover out to give enough clearance. We still have a few things in the way, but it should be a lot easier now without those connected, because they were spanning over it and not giving a lot of room there to work. So let's go ahead and get that out. You always know when somebody's done quality work on your car when that's that gasket and that's a completely different kind of gasket. I'm struggling to get this out right now, but I just wanted to show that that gasket is one of the cork ones and the other one's a blue one. Unbelievable. Whoever worked on this. I'm so annoyed right now. So quality work. I hate having other people work on my car. As much as it's a pain to work on it for myself now, every time I find work that other people have done, it's so frustrating because nobody cares, and they do, so all too often they do crap work, and it makes me most frustrated. Anyways, I may struggle to get this out and then finish up for tonight. Once again, I am losing daylight quickly, and it'll probably be dark in about another 20-30 minutes. So I know on the camera it looks nice and bright, but that's because my camera's adjusting for the light and not because it actually is. Be picking this up probably tomorrow after I get this bad boy off. All right, so we got the other valve cover off. And now I'd mentioned earlier about not removing the AC. Fuck me for saying that. I did go ahead and remove it, not because it was in the way on this side, but because it was in the way on the back. So because this, I believe this for the EGR, is here, you have to lift it up from the back. Well, the line for the AC goes along the back there, and I couldn't get the valve cover up past that to then tilt and lift out of the way. And so by undoing the 4 bolts for the AC, and they did come out pretty easily, it allowed me to wiggle that around to make the clearance to then lift the valve cover up, and it just came right out. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to grab some brake clean and spray it on a rag and just wipe around the edge, make sure the edge where the seal is going to go, or where the gasket's going to go, is clean. Right here on both sides is where we're going to hit it for with some RTV, because this is where the intake, which is here, the lower intake, and the cylinder head meet. So there's a definite gap there that needs to be filled. It's on both sides, front and back, along that top edge. Now, if you're going to be replacing the whole intake gasket, at this point you take off, I believe this is your thermostat for your heater, unscrew these bolts going along the edge here to lift out. This is your fuel rail, and there's a few more bolts, and this just lifts out. So we're about 95% of the way to replacing the intake gasket, but I don't want to do that because mine is good. There's nothing wrong with it. So not going to replace it. We're just doing the valve cover gaskets. So at least that's my hope. I'm pretty sure it's not bad. I'm pretty sure. I don't have any codes or anything for it leaking, so. And all right, I'm gonna go get my brake clean, do some cleaning up, and go get my gaskets and start the next part of the process. I don't know if I'll record too much more until I'm very done, just because the hard part's taking things apart. Once things are apart, you can put them back together pretty easily if you remember what you did. So anyways, a couple of things I'd like to mention. It's nice having a piece of cardboard, especially if you're having to lean across here, because this will dig into your gut and it hurts. I picked up this guy on Amazon after watching Project Farm's video on these. It's a pretty good deal. I can't remember what I paid. I want to say it was like 30 bucks or something for it. It sure makes this job a heck of a lot easier to do, because there's a lot of unscrewing and screwing things back in. So definitely a high recommend on that. I'll put a link to it in the description if you're interested in getting one. Anyways, let me go get my gaskets and my brake clean, and I'll show you guys when it's all back together. All right, so I probably hit my stopping point tonight because once again I'm losing light and I gotta go in and help with dinner and stuff. So I'm gonna pause here, but the engineer that designed the EGR thing here, you can go straight to hell, by the way. It is such a pain. The simplest thing, just getting this intake on and off, is made next to impossible by that. Oh my goodness, I want to scream. It's so frustrating because this is plastic. And so I'm trying to be careful, because if I break this, right, this 20-something-year-old piece of plastic, what's going to happen? I'm going to have to find a replacement for it. And is it going to be easy to find a replacement? No, it's not. And so I'm trying to finagle it around that stupid thing, get it on these bolts in the perfect way. And yeah, I'm sorry. So frustrating. But we almost got it back together. I'll finish up tomorrow after work again, because I just have other things I have to get to. All right, so everything is buttoned back up together. I don't think I've missed anything. I just finished topping off the coolant because obviously, I had to take off this hose, so I lost a little bit. Well, let's go ahead, and I took a few minutes and cleaned up the battery terminals because they'd gotten pretty gross. You can see this battery's pretty old. It's almost 5 years old now. So let's go ahead and start up and make sure everything's running good. Probably the most important part is make sure you didn't break it more than it was. Excuse my dirty truck. All right. So that's really unhappy. I might have my spark plugs. All right, so it's many days later since I actually finished this. I'm just now having 5 minutes to think about it. So in my very last part of my last video, which happened on Friday, today is now Tuesday, so that's how many days have passed. The problem I ran into is I went to start it and I had backfires and it just died. It wouldn't run. I actually posted a quick video when I was asking for help, and what had happened is, I guess when I was putting this back together, the very backmost gasket that looks like this centerpiece had fallen and like twisted up underneath it like this. It had fallen out, and so it had created a massive vacuum leak. Because it wasn't on the back edge, I couldn't feel it. It was flush back there, and I couldn't figure out where the vacuum leak was. But as soon as I took off the intake again, I was able to find it and fix it, and we got back together. But then I heard a sucking noise and realized that my EGR valve had a vacuum leak. And I don't know how long it's been going on for, but it definitely is a problem. So what I did is I put a new O-ring on there. That did. So the old O-ring was a vacuum leak. Put on a new O-ring that's the correct size, and that's a vacuum leak. And so I just put some RTV around it and let it sit overnight. That's one reason why it's taking me so long to get back to it, is I let it sit for a full 24 hours before I started the car, because I wanted the RTV to have plenty of time to set up. Now let me go ahead and start it. Excuse the dirtiness of my truck. Good. No vacuum leaks that I can hear. So should be good to go. Pretty straightforward process. Again, the only real mishap I had was this folding under, so creating a vacuum leak. They sell like a gasket. I forget what it's called, but it's basically almost like an RTV, but it really isn't. It doesn't harden up. It's just like a tackiness that you can use to keep your gaskets in place. That wouldn't be a bad idea to do on this, just to keep everything in place. But yeah, we're good to go. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you have an amazing day.